Hi everyone, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So I'm over here with my Laser Pecker 4, which was the very first laser that I ever purchased for my business. And what I wanted to do is go over diode lasers, what you should know about them, because I'm sure now that I'm well into over a year of lasering things, and those of you that follow my channel, there's probably some of you out there that are thinking about, hey, should I get a laser? Could this benefit my business? Is this worth doing? And I'm going to throw in knife makers too, because I think these are great for knife makers. And also, knife makers are some of my clients. And I'm going to show you how that's kind of worked into the business too. But let's start with the very basics of lasers. What types are there? What do you need to know before you jump in and go spend, on the low end, you can get a very basic laser for just a couple $100. And but I want you to know what you're getting and what its capabilities are going to be, all the way up into thousands of dollars, which you can spend. And if you've ever watched my channel trailer, I explained how I got interested in lasers was because I had a client who came in and wanted me to engrave 150 knives. And I had no way to do it. I had to refer the work out to somebody else. And I started looking at lasers at that time. And this was a couple years ago now, probably about 4 years ago. And they were pretty expensive back then to get a laser that could engrave a knife. But we've had a lot of changes in the last couple years. So let's get started with that. Okay, so let's start our discussion here. Since I am a knife sharpening service, let's start with talking about engraving knives, because that's the primary thing that I do. But then we'll talk about the litany of other things that you can do with your laser. We'll get into that and we'll touch on all that. But let's start with the very basics. So when I started looking at lasers, the best laser for doing metal engraving on a knife is a fiber laser. And at the time, a fiber laser was very expensive. So if you wanted to, put somebody's name on a knife, like I engrave this Spyderco here of my own, you needed a fiber laser only a few years ago. And diode lasers were basically back then for cutting soft materials. And then a couple years ago, I saw an advertisement for a company called Laser Pecker. And at the same time, I didn't know about the other one, but I do have some of their products. So I'm going to talk about that too. Xtool came out with their F1. Now, if you were to look at the Laser Pecker 4, which I have here, and the Xtool F1, they are very, very similar machines. They both have a 450 watt laser built into them, and they both have a 2-watt infrared laser. The 2-watt infrared laser is what's important for knife makers, knife sharpeners, if you want to engrave metal knives. And I'm going to show you here what I'm talking about. So this is a engraving test sheet that I ran on my Laser Pecker 4, which is this unit right here. And this shows its ability to engrave. This is a stainless steel business card that's a pretty thick one. And I use this to get a good idea of what a stainless steel knife engraving would do and what the settings should be. So you can see there's different variations even in color here. We have like a gold to light brown, all the way down to a very, very dark black, deep engraving with this particular laser. And this is its actual maximum ability on this side. This is 100% power at 100% depth. and I get this very black engraving that is actually into the metal. Like you can feel where it has taken away the metal there by, lasers basically uh, vaporize stuff. So they vaporizes that metal and puts that engraving in there. Now, there are also differences between marking and engraving. So if you will see here on some of these light ones, you don't really feel it in the metal, but it's changing like the surface of it. And so that's something you need to know too. So there's marking and then there's actually engraving. And to me, when we're talking engraving, we're talking I want it in the metal. It's deep. It's not going to come out. It's not going to something that's going to come off if it was scrubbed or cleaned too many times. We're talking an actual mark in the metal that you will see. And this laser's 2-watt infrared laser at its highest setting will put a very nice dark black engraving in there. And depending on the size of the engraving depends on how much time that will take. Now, what are some other nice features about a laser like this? So as you can see, this is a very portable unit. It's very tiny. It's not heavy. I can pick it up. I can bring it different places. I can move it around. I'm going to turn it on here for you for a second. And when I say that this has 2 lasers built into one, I want to show you at the top here. So right now you'll see it says 450 nanometers. This is the blue laser. And this is used mostly for softer materials. So if I was going to engrave wood or do things like you see here, I'm going to use most of the time the 450 watt nanometer laser. If I want to engrave metal, all I have to do on here is switch over, and you can see now it says 1064 nanometers. Now I'm using a completely different laser. This is the 2-watt 1064, and that is what did that really deep engraving that I showed you, different card, on this one. So that's what did this right here. This is one style of laser. I really like this desktop size. It's been great, especially in the shop where I don't have a ton of room. If I just have to, throw a knife under here real quick and do an engraving on it, it does an absolutely beautiful job. If we're just looking for something simple as far as like a name on a knife, a little logo on a knife, this is a really great option. Now, the other cool thing about having a laser is it opens up a whole world of other possibilities of things that you can sell and do relatively easily. And people love personalized gifts. So I've done tumblers. These are silicone dog tags. These are real popular. I've done slate coasters with engravings on them. One of the really popular things I've been doing lately have been bottle openers. Really easy stuff to market and sell, and very easy to make with a laser. You do have that option too, is that it's going to give you the ability to do other things, and little simple things like this, like little pet tags, depending on what you are doing. These are really easy to do. Now, if you are a person that likes to go to events, crafting things, farmers markets, and that kind of stuff, I think this style laser is a really great choice for someone like that. I'm going to explain to you why. And I'm going to use the comparison of my other 2 lasers that I have in the shop. And that is that this thing is super portable. And what I mean by that is this is a battery pack that I can plug this laser into. So if I was at a farmer's market, I could bring this with me. I can engrave all kinds of other things. I can engrave knives with this laser. on the go and just take it with me and run it for several hours off of this little battery pack. I can't do that with one of my much bigger lasers like my Xtool S1. And let me show you that. I'll just swing around here for a second. So it's under this cover right here. I have pulled out a lot of the parts that I'm going to show you for the Laser Pecker. So this is a case for the Laser Pecker, and I'll talk about this in a second. But I just wanted to show you, the difference we're talking in size is significant. So this is my Xtool S1. Now, what's interesting about it is they also make a 2-watt infrared metal engraving module for that particular laser. I'm going to show you a side by side here. So the lower one is the test grid that I ran for the S1, and you'll see it is very capable also of doing a very deep black engraving. And you can put them right next to each other. If you look at these are the same. I mean, they're both equally black because it's basically the same laser. Now, what's the difference? Well, my giant S1 over here can take much bigger items in there. It's a big giant bed laser. So the laser is traveling great distances and can do much bigger items, where my Laser Pecker 4 here is limited to this particular space right here. So this is its engraving area, but that's a pretty good size space. So for a knife, for coasters, small things, this is no problem whatsoever. Now, they do make some other very cool accessories for this. They do make a little bed that will move. So if you wanted to do, let's say, a bigger sign, and I've used it for doing charcuterie boards on slate that I wanted to make bigger, I could put it on here and it will move that whole piece under this laser, and it can do something as wide as this, but a lot longer because of that track that it can run on. So that's an option. The other thing that they make for this is a rotary, and that's how you can do your tumblers. And these are really easy too. And this is very simply just removing the powder coating on this coffee tumbler. So usually these are just kind of powder coated, and with the right settings, you're basically taking the powder coating off. And then I usually use a Mr. Clean eraser to clean these up, and they just come out beautiful, and they're relatively easy to do. Almost every laser out there has that. So most of them have, my Xtool S1 has a rotary attachment that I can put inside there. My Creality Falcon 2 also, you can get a rotary for that. And even this one has a rotary. The only thing that's different on this is I actually have to change. I usually do them standing straight up, and I put it in the rotary this way, and I point the laser at it this way, and it just kind of spins around and engraves it. Now, what you see here to the left is an enclosure. And I want to talk a little bit about enclosures, why they're important, why it's nice to have different options. This laser will fit right inside here. I can put this right over top of this laser. Then I don't have to worry about eye protection. This glass will protect me from that blue laser and also the 2-watt IR laser if it's lasering something in there. What's the downside of this? Well, sometimes you have to put something in here that's bigger, and there's been plenty of times I've had to leave the door open. Still not a big deal. If you're doing that, if it doesn't fit, completely in, if it's something that's bigger, then you might have to crack a door open, leave it open, and then your smart thing to do would be to put on safety glasses. And I have several of them in my shop. I highly recommend that you get a very good pair of laser safety glasses so that you do not do any damage to your eyes. Because Trust me, even though you know it's dangerous, it's very tempting. You're going to want to look at the laser and see what it's doing. And if it's definitely not in an enclosure, you're going to want glasses on. So I have 4 or 5 pairs of these safety glasses around the shop. And it's also good if you have a shop like mine where customers come in, if they want to see what's going on. If you don't have it in an enclosure, you want to give them a pair of glasses too, so that they can protect their eyes and not do any damage to your eye, because that would be an absolutely terrible thing to have happen, would be to damage your eyesight with a laser. And it can happen. So you don't want to catch a stray beam in there. And when doing knife engravings, you have to be careful of beam reflection. Now, typically this would only happen with a really mirror polished knife. And that's why I think I've shown in videos before, if I'm doing something that's highly polished, I'm going to color it in with a Sharpie marker, which helps the laser hit the correct spot and not bounce that beam off into a direction I don't want it to go. You also wouldn't want it to bounce back into your laser, because it could damage your laser. So if it's anything super shiny, all you have to do is color it in with a Sharpie marker, which comes off really easy with alcohol. This is an option to know that you can have bigger cases. And then I even have a bigger tent that I like to use when I do tumblers. And I will put this laser inside of that tent. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, protecting your lungs and smoke and things that are going to come from your laser. Now, for the most part, when you're engraving metal, you don't want to breathe that stuff in, but there's not a whole lot that's going on. You don't smell very much. You don't create a lot of smoke. It's a fairly simple process. And even in the beginning, when I didn't have those other ones, I would use this little hood. And when this little hood is on here and down close to the workpiece, it does a very good job of getting the smoke out of the shop. But what I want to remind you of and show you, because this is one thing that I think is a little, kind of gives a wrong perception if you don't really know this about lasers, which is, if you were to go on Laser Pecker's website and look at this particular laser, I mean, for a long time, I don't know if they still have the same advertisement, but it was like sitting in a guy's office. So you kind of get the impression that you can just do this anywhere. Oh, I'm going to do it in my office. I'll do it in my kitchen. And I just want to, let you know that's probably not the case. It depends on what you're laser engraving. But I will tell you, if you're doing wood, it makes a good bit of smoke. If you're doing leather, it doesn't smell all that great. If you're doing metal, there is a tiny little bit of smoke and gas that you want to be careful of. And, all these things, these little silicone dog tags have a particular smell to them. A lot of things that people do with lasers is cut acrylic and engraving acrylic. That will give off a smell very similar to the acetone you'll smell if you walked in a nail salon. So the very best thing you can do, if you're going to have a shop, and if you're going to have a craft room or whatever in your house where you're going to be engraving a lot of stuff, you really got to think about a ventilation system. And you can see on the back of this little hood, I have a hose which goes down and connects through a bunch of tubes to that powered fan, which blows everything outside. And every one of my lasers in my shop, if you look down there, you see the big hose going down. They are all vented outside. In my opinion, that's the very best way to go, if you can do it. Now, I'm going to show you another accessory that I have here for this laser. And I know the Xtool F1 has a similar thing, but I want to talk about the actual true capabilities of what this does and what you can expect. A lot of lasers advertised with filtration systems. The filtration system is a fantastic idea. In my honest opinion, though, you are much better off building an outside ventilation system like I showed, or running a hose to a window unit. You can get window outside ventilations that you can plug into than using something like this. Now, these are not cheap. They are, I think, right around $500, but I'll show you what this does. So if I had to use this in a place that I didn't have a vent, I can still collect the smoke and the smell, and all I have to do is take this unit and it plugs right back into that fan. It sucks the smoke and gases and things into here, where it goes through several filters into a HEPA filter and cleans the air and blows the clean air back out through the bottom here. Now, I want to be very clear about this to manage expectations. This thing is, in my opinion, it's great for events. It's great for if you go someplace on location and you want to keep down the smells and things from just using an open laser. Like I said, I would not use this in my shop every day as the solution for the smoke and gases and things that come off of your laser. I feel that this is truly meant for events, farmers markets, need it for a short period of time. The filters are not inexpensive. And if I was to run this all the time, I would fill these filters up very quickly, an expensive endeavor. So I only use these when I'm going to go somewhere, or if I have to take it someplace where I want to be very conscious about smells and stuff. So maybe I want to go in my house and engrave something right on location. Maybe it's something I can't move or bring to it, and I'm going to bring the laser engraver to it, which is what's one of the things that's great about this is I can bring the laser to it. And here's another really cool thing that I guess a lot of people don't even necessarily think of or realize. This thing comes off. So, I mean, the possibilities of how you can use this are pretty much endless. If I had to engrave something on a wall, I could hold this. I have some short cords on here, but I could hold this up against the wall just like that and engrave it right on the wall or right on a specific location. So the fact that this is as portable as it is one of the reasons that I purchased this particular unit. Now, like I said, there's an Xtool F1. It has a lot of the same capabilities. I don't believe it has the ability to do like you just saw me do here. Now, like I said, I don't own an F1, so I can't say 100% that it can't do it. But to me, it's always looked like it has an enclosure that's kind of fitted to it that comes down. And I don't know if the whole thing comes off because I don't own one. But hey, Xtool, if you want to send me one, I'd be happy to review it and compare the two and compare the Laser Pecker to the Xtool F1. But as far as the lasers, they both have the same double laser inside. They have the 450 nanometer and the 2-watt IR, so they can do just a huge variety of materials. They're both very portable units. You will see a lot of people at farmers markets and events bringing a F1 with them or something like a Laser Pecker with them. So know that that's another option out there. And I will say this, I absolutely love my Xtool S1 40-watt laser that I just showed you, the really big one. Xtool makes amazing gear, amazing lasers, and I've been very happy with their stuff too. I just can't give you a perfect comparison to the Laser Pecker only because I don't own an F1, so I can't really speak to all of its capabilities. Now, I do know the Laser Pecker's engraving area is larger than the F1's, and that was one of the other reasons when I purchased this that I went with Laser Pecker. Now, as a positive for Xtool stuff, I will tell you this. Xtool is very committed to their software. They're a much bigger company. They do regular updates. They fix problems very quickly. And that I will tell you, has not been my experience exactly with Laser Pecker. They're a much smaller company. That doesn't mean they're not making a great quality product. They are. They make a very nice laser. This laser has worked very well for me. But I will say, in the very beginning, there were some glitches with their software that took a while. I mean, when I say a while, like a couple months to get corrected. And I'll show you one of them here. Why? And this might be a reason why, you might want to consider Xtool over Laser Pecker. Now, this issue has been resolved, but this is just an example. So when I first got it, I went to do this tumbler and I engraved this on my Laser Pecker here, and you can see it cut the Y off. It didn't complete the Y properly. And it was doing it on every type of font that was long. If I did it in a vector image, it was just cutting the bottoms off. The laser community, we came up with plenty of workarounds. A lot of us would convert this to, we found out that it wouldn't do it if it was like a picture. So we would convert it to a bitmap file and then engrave it that way. That problem has since been corrected. It doesn't do that at all anymore. But I just wanted to give you that as kind of an example that this was an issue that took Laser Pecker a couple months to resolve, even though like they knew about it and many of us were writing in and telling them. It just didn't get the focus, in my opinion, that it should have got right from the problem being detected. And it's, in my opinion, it shouldn't have taken 3 months for it to be corrected. Now, my experience with Xtool has been they would never kind of let something like that go on for several weeks or months. But the difference is, my understanding is, I think I heard one time on one of their presentations that they have over 100 employees that just work on the software alone. And I think Laser Pecker only has a couple. So keep in mind, you're dealing with, like I said, two very different size companies. I also spent a lot less money on this unit. I knew going in there were going to be some glitches that I felt they would eventually get worked out, which they did. That's been just one of those things. If you go with a smaller company that may not be as well established, some of those things might take a little while to figure out. The one great thing about all lasers, and I can tell you this with all three that I have. So I have the Creality Falcon 2 over here on the right, my Laser Pecker 4 here, and my Xtool S1. All three of them have fantastic Facebook groups and user groups. And quite honestly, those are the places to go 90% of the time to get the answer that you need. Because almost all these companies are overseas. So if you're having a problem, sometimes it might take you 24 hours to get an answer to your problem. There's been very little that I haven't been able to just go online, whether it be the Xtool Facebook group or the Laser Pecker Facebook group. And the funny thing you'll see is a lot of people are even in both, because I'll warn you again, I've warned you before in other videos. It is very tempting once you get your first laser, just like knife sharpening has been for me, where I have multiple knife sharpening tools. Owning multiple lasers is a thing that just really kind of ends up happening to you, because you have things you want to do, or you start needing to produce things more in bulk. Don't be surprised if you buy one laser that in a short period of time, you end up having 2 lasers or 3 lasers. Some of the guys that I follow, that I learned from, some have 10, 12. I think I've even heard one of the guys I follow, I think he even said he had 16 different lasers. I mean, so it's not uncommon for people to have a lot of lasers. Is that necessary? It's absolutely not necessary. But that's also why I want to go into a lot of the detail here. So I want to make sure you get the one that's just right for you out of the gates. That's going to be able to do the majority of stuff that you're looking to do without having to go and buy another laser. That's how I got into the diode lasers. This was my very first one. This is the one that I use a ton. I use it in my shop a lot. The next one I will do a video on is I'm going to talk to you all about my Xtool S1 40-watt laser that also has the interchangeable head that can do metal engraving too, and compare the two machines and let you guys decide, hey, maybe that one might be for you, because they can, like I said, do a lot of the same things. Now, I still would highly recommend, if you're in the market for what I would call a portable laser, or something you can take with you, or say you're a mobile sharpener working out of a truck or a van and you want to start doing engraving too on things, something like this would be fantastic for you, or the Xtool F1. Those would be the two very affordable, very well owned by people, where a lot of like I said, when I bought this a year ago, it was, we were the beta testers for it. And I had a lot of, little glitches and things that happened along the way. Now, if you buy a Laser Pecker 4, you're not going to go through what I went through owning it, because, I bought this off of a Kickstarter program. Now, when you buy it on Amazon, they've already worked out all of that stuff. So just know that too, that anything that you might, because for a while, sadly, this got, I think, kind of a bad rap, and I don't think it deserved a bad rap. A lot of people are, even in the community, were like, I should have bought the Xtool F1 instead of the Laser Pecker 4. I have never felt that way so far. I knew what I was getting into. I knew there was going to be some software things here and there, but when I tell you that this thing is super user friendly, and the one thing I didn't touch on here, and I will hit on it real quickly too, is that you can do this also from your phone. So you don't even have to drag a laptop with you. You can do it from a phone. You can do it from an iPad. This connects Bluetooth, so you can plug into it. So sometimes I plug a computer into it, and a lot of times I'll hook my telephone to it, or I'll hook my iPad to it. It works both with Android and iPhone, and I have found that integration to be very good. Xtool lasers do it too, and I haven't had any issues with that. But so just so you know, they both do that. They both have that capability. But I have found that Laser Pecker does work very well from my phone. Now, I'm not a huge fan of working from a phone. I'm kind of old school. I like to work on a laptop, but that option is out there. And I mean, you can't get much more portable than dragging your laser and a phone with you and a battery pack to go engrave something real quick. I mean, you could have a small mobile engraving service just doing that with this little battery pack and this laser. Man, you could do a lot, and that could be a service, just going around and laser engraving things on location for people. That's it for the Laser Pecker 4. I hope that answers any questions about this particular unit. To give you an idea about the differences, like I said, between the 450 nanometer lasers and the 2-watt IRs, that's where you really want to be looking for metal engraving, unless you have an incredible amount of money to spend. If you do, then you could look to, if you're a knife maker, you could look to a fiber laser. Minimum you're going to be spending is probably $3,000, and it could be easily 4 to 6, even 7,000 for a fiber laser. And they are also a little more complicated to run a fiber laser, because there's some other factors involved in a fiber laser. And I'll just finish with this. Yeah. So basically, when I'm laser engraving with a diode laser, I'm setting power. I'm setting, in this particular laser, they call it depth. It could also be considered resolution. And that's one thing. They all have a little bit different terminology, especially when they made their own software. All of my machines are also compatible with Lightburn. Lightburn is pretty much the industry leader in software to run lasers from. So you can run a Laser Pecker 4 from Lightburn. I don't bother. I really don't need to. The only machine that I use Lightburn on is my Creality Falcon 2, because that doesn't actually have its own software. So it was designed to use the Lightburn program. Same with my Xtool S1 laser that can also run Lightburn. I don't do it because I really like Xtool Creative Space. It's been very good to me. It's been very user friendly for me, and I just use their software with it. They are all very similar, but like I said, on here, and I'll just show you on the little card. So here's the Xtool S1. This was run at 300 LPI. So that's lines per inch is what that LPI stands for. And it's kind of like resolution. It's how much it's going to fill in that little squared area. Laser Pecker, for some reason, they decided to call theirs something different. They don't really use LPI. They use a resolution type thing. So you can do a 2K, a 4K, or an 8K on the Laser Pecker. And that's basically kind of like the 8K would be kind of maxing out the LPI on the Xtool S1. And then similar, if you get into Lightburn also uses that terminology of the lines per inch type thing, which seems to be a little bit more standard. Laser Pecker kind of went out on their own out there when they started using the 4K resolution type of terminology. That kind of deviated a little bit from what everyone else in the industry was doing. But I think it was also very easy for some people to understand. So I think they were looking for a super user-friendly machine, and I think they did a very good job of creating that. And that's what you do get with a Laser Pecker 4. You are going to get a very user-friendly machine that you can laser engrave all kinds of things with, and it's not going to have a very difficult learning curve to be up and using this thing right away. All right, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoy that. I hope that helps some of you out there that might be considering getting a laser, whether you have a sharpening business, whether you're a knife maker and you want to start putting your own maker marks on there. And the nice thing about that is I can make that maker's mark any size. So he'll adjust that mark to whatever type of knife that he made. So if we want it a little bigger, if we want it in a different spot, if we want to even design it slightly differently, we have those options with the laser. So even if you're just a knife maker and you want to do your own marking, or maybe you want to serial number your knives that are going out of your shop so that things that were definitely yours. Another cool thing I saw somebody recently did a video on, that they're putting a message under their handles that they know may never be seen for 100 years, but they're writing a message underneath the handle of the knife that they made so that, in 100 years from now, if someone pulls the scales off or goes to replace them, they're going to see the message that this knife maker put under the knife scale. So I thought that was pretty cool. So a lot of just fun ideas and creative things you can do with a laser. Really, the possibilities are endless. You don't have to be super creative. These bottle openers, I did not design these. Like I said, I got these from a guy Etsy site. He's Valley Forged. I've shown these in other videos. These have been super popular. I only sell them in my shop, and they, people come in and see these and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Literally, I paid a couple dollars for the file that he made. I made the designs myself, but I didn't have to figure out all the geometry. The middle part, I get them on Amazon, and they're not that expensive. They're like $1.50 for the aluminum. The wood is actually more expensive because I'm using real wood on mine. So they're either oak or walnut. This one's actually cedar. The wood actually costs me more than the metal does. In total, this might cost me, I would say, somewhere between $3 and at the high end, maybe $5 to produce. And I'm selling them for $35, and they're very popular. That's one of the cool things about a laser too, is it's going to open you up to possibilities of things that you might want to get into and might want to sell that you hadn't even thought of. All right, everybody. So before this goes on for too long, because truly only the really committed of those of you out there that want to know about lasers are going to sit through this whole thing. hopefully I can edit it down somewhat, get it down a little bit shorter. But I wanted to give you all those details so that you're really well informed on your first laser purchase.